The format for this meeting is an interview with an alcoholic, the hot seat, inside the Alcoholic Studio. Our speaker will be asked a series of questions that range from their personal story, the steps, relationship with God, and carrying the message. There are no right answers, just a fun and interesting way to share the speaker's personal insight. Our speaker for tonight is Sarah. Timekeeper, please allow 90 seconds per question. The meeting may run slightly longer. Members, please feel free to leave if needed. Speaker, please say done when you have finished your answers, or please say pass on questions you would prefer to skip. Are you ready?
I am.
Let's begin. Please generally describe, in your own words, our basic text, the book Alcoholics Anonymous.
In 90 seconds? Okay. It's a book that was written a very long time ago that, for me, has all the answers to my life in it in conjunction with my sponsor's advice.
Cool. Are you an alcoholic? And if so, what personally makes you an alcoholic?
So at the beginning of the meeting, you all read the definition of the alcoholic in Silkworth's, the opinion to the doctor's opinion. And that is how I define myself. And I found that at 2 years sober. So that's how I define myself. My problems piled up on me and they became astonishingly difficult to solve. And I don't know if I answered the second part of the question, but...
That's what makes you an alcoholic, so yeah.
Yeah.
What does the concept of anonymity mean to you?
Anonymity is really big for me. The concept of it is I don't tell anybody's anything that they've told me at all. That's 100%. I don't care if you are my sponsee or you're my friend. Like that's that. In addition to that, let's say you and I were all at this meeting together and somebody asks me later, "Hey, was so-and-so at that meeting tonight?" I'm like, I don't know. You should have been there. The concept of anonymity for me is fairly large. I take it all the way from social media and AA down to the very smallest part of my life. I'm very open about the fact that I am an alcoholic, and I want you and Alcoholics Anonymous to be able to find me. I pass out my number. So within Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not anonymous. However, I'm not going to be sharing that Who's a Who was here tonight, and I spoke with Who's a That about what's a what. I'm not going to do that.
Please give us a brief sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit.
I think my drinking career is separated by two parts. The first part was the longest part. It was very fun for a very large amount of time. If it wasn't fun, I don't think I would have continued it. I started drinking somewhere between, drinking heavily around 20, and I stopped that at, 28. And I entered the second phase, right? The second phase is I became a daily drinker. And there was a very clear line in a very short amount of time where my life completely focused. And I didn't realize that my life completely focused around and was dictated by, that took a sponsor's guidance. It absolutely was. So there's two parts of my drinking career before I found Alcoholics Anonymous.
Alcoholism is described in the book as a fatal illness. What does that mean to you?
Two things. One, I will absolutely die if I take drinks. That's it. But more so, it's the spiritual fatality. I was dead on the inside. I even at 90 days sober, I would walk around and I could talk about this necrotic death that lived inside of me, this amoeba-like entity that just ate underneath my skin. And so I could talk about that newly sober. And I felt that way spiritually in Alcoholics Anonymous without the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I know that I can feel that way again with or without alcohol. And So I believe that it's a double physical, but it's also spiritual death.
Kind of leads us to the next question. What are the conditions of your mind and body that accompany your alcoholism?
So I really enjoy controlling other people. And, in the last year I've gotten to take a look at that and work on that specifically. I don't like what's outside of me. I don't like what's going on. I don't like the traffic. I don't like the way people are interacting with me. I don't like my work. Whatever the cases are. And I want to put something inside of my body to make me feel better. And for a long time, I wanted to feel nothing. Those last 4 years, I just wanted it to go away. So now that I'm not drinking, it's a combination of behaviors and feelings of active alcoholism we have so many tools that when I stop using those tools for any duration of time, my active alcoholism will come back and I will begin having those behaviors again of like, oh, you're not driving correctly? Let me tell you about it. Oh, you're not wiping the counters down correctly? Let me tell you about it. Like, it's stuff like that.
In your understanding, what is the role of a sponsor? Do you have a sponsor? And how often are you in contact with your sponsor?
I'm going to answer that in a different order than it was asked. Yes, I do have a sponsor. I contact my sponsor anywhere from every 3 to 7 days. 7 days is really pushing it. And because I treat her just as another alcoholic, she's not on a pedestal to me, I go to her with everything. The role of a sponsor, I believe, is multiple fold. Yes, she is, or in my case, it's a she, but the sponsor is supposed to guide me and walk me through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because she is free from her story, from the bondage of herself, she's able to express her story in a way that I can hear it and relate to it. She is supposed to guide me through the darkness that is the forest and lead me to the other side. She's supposed to help me see this design for living, and I can't see it if I just read the book by myself.
How have your sponsorship needs changed from early sobriety until now?
So I will say that the first sponsor that I picked because I didn't want to sleep with their boyfriends. So my sponsorship needs have changed a lot. Then the next person that I chose had, and probably still does, has a wonderful program. And came to a newcomers meeting and talked and spoke about that program. And I heard structure. And I felt that I was a person that was just amoeba-like, boundless, limitless. And I was like, this will fix me. The structure will fix me. And what I can say about that is that I rebelled against that structure because I felt that it was another person imposing it on me. Over the time, my sponsor has been my sponsor now for 3.5, almost 4 years. And I need to be able to tell her everything. I need to be able to be honest with her about everything. And that is incredibly difficult for somebody like me who wants to hide and put dark cloaks of everything, like shades around my entire life. So that's a requirement for me where it wasn't a requirement when I first started. Trust is absolutely huge, and that wasn't a requirement. That's enough.
Have you completed the 12 steps, and if so, what is your suggested time frame for completing the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous?
I'm shaking my head. So I've gone through 4 rotations, 4 passages, whatever action word you want to say. But I have worked those steps 4 times through. I'm on my 4th. I apologize. I am on my 4th time pass through the steps. I'm currently on step 4. I don't have a suggested time requirement. However, when I work with somebody, it is very obvious when that person is balking. And it is very obvious when I am balking. When I am slowing down because I don't want to know the truth, when I'm slowing down, when I don't want to see what is laying underneath that fear or that guilt or that action set. So I don't have a suggested, we're going to do this in a certain amount of time. Like, I don't have that. What I have is the requirement of honesty and self-honesty, honesty with me and honesty with yourself. And like, I'm going to help you squeeze that out.
I like that word. In your own words, please describe steps 1, 2, and 3.
This is difficult. So for me, when it comes to step 1, I'm just looking at the steps right now. I had to admit that alcohol controlled my life. And thankfully, I had a sponsor that was able to guide me through that. I didn't know what that looked like. And I certainly didn't believe that my life was unmanageable. But when I spoke with my sponsor, they were able to ask me questions that helped me. Well, did you try and fix this? Did you try and arrange that? And as that time has progressed, so like that's like sort of like the admission of I need help. Like this isn't working and I need help. And for me, that has carried out during any sort of behavior in my life that I have continued to participate in. Number 2 is very simple for me. I am not the largest thing on this planet. I do not control how much the waves come into the ocean. I don't control how much water the trees uptake. And do I believe that someday possibly I can be sane? Yes, I absolutely believe that. And I don't believe that I'm in control of that, but something else maybe can. And then number 3, that is 100% action. I really thought that it was just the prayer that I needed to say, and that was the action. No, So that's the first action step for me. It's a daily action step. That's how I would describe step 3.
What does your unmanageability and self-will look like?
Today? Okay. So unmanageability. That's actually a little bit more difficult. Self-will is a little bit more easy. I will choose, and I have a household. I don't know if y'all have a household, but I live with other people. I will trick, like my alcoholism or my self-will like come up and be like, oh, I really want to have this for dinner. And so then I will, instead of just saying, I really want to have pho bac viet for dinner, I will manipulate everybody in the household to be like, Chinese food sounds really good tonight. I think maybe. And so my self-will comes out in sneaky ways like that. Again, if I'm not working a program, like that's how it comes out. As for unmanageability, that one's really difficult. I do a lot to make sure that my life, I only do the next thing that's in front of me. And that's very hard. It's very hard. So I don't know. That's what I want to say about that.
What is your concept of a power greater than yourself? And how are you turning your will and life over to it?
This is like so far my favorite question. Go number 12. So when I first got sober, they had that part in the book about electricity, and I could get down with that. And I also had some other things that I came in with, thinking about plants. So I was like, as I formed this idea of a power that's larger than myself, its name is the energy of the universe. And I spend time imagining this great, like, if you could just imagine to yourself this great flow of electrons moving throughout in a current, if you like a stream of electrons. And that's what I try and plug into, like our book, one of our pieces of literature suggests, is like, I don't control, but yet I'm dependent on the electricity. I can't. And so I try and plug into that stream of electrons. As for what it is, I go to this women's retreat. So if she ends up listening to this, I want to give her credit. She talks about her power greater than herself being in front of her, behind her, at her feet. And so I sort of feel like I'm encased like a bubble, but not like a protective bubble, like shielding me from people, but like a connective tissue, like we're all connected kind of thing, bubble. Yeah.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 4 and 5.
So this first time that I did step 4, although it was thorough and it had everybody on it, my head and my heart were not connected. I was still protecting myself a lot with that. When I did step 5 and I told my sponsor at the time everything, it was more of like an admission, like just logical. Like I did this, I did this, I did this. And yeah, I can see how that caused fear. It was very logical. The other times that I've done step 4, I really, when it talks about step 3, like wanting to seek out the root of our selfishness and our self-seeking, I went into step 4 with that attitude of like, I can't live like this anymore. And if I don't change this, if I don't see the true nature of these behaviors, I'm going to die. And at that point in time, it was like an inside death. So that's where it's been like that. So I make a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself like that. And then I admit it either to my sponsor or another alcoholic if it's too late at night. and then I round back with my sponsor and admit it to her as well.
What does the exact nature of your wrongs mean to you?
I did not. Okay. Instead of saying that, I will say what it meant to me. It meant I'm sorry this is taking so long. I hope you can edit this. So in our 12 and 12, it talks about how an index of our maladjustments, and that was the only one that that resonated with me. All the other words felt like pokes in the eye. An index of my maladjustments, I absolutely am maladjusted to life. I've already talked to you about that in step 1. My sponsor knows that very clearly, how I am maladjusted to life. And so when I am done with 4 and 5, my sponsor, with the truth that they know about themselves, is helping me see that truth of my maladjustments. For all the women or people who appreciate fine clothing, I used to call them like sweater pulls. Like if you have a really nice sweater, and at step 6 and 7, I'm asking like those holes to be brought back into the sweater.
Briefly describe, in your own words, step 6 and 7.
So with step 6 and step 7, the first time I did it, it was just, again, like I told you, like it was super logical. I was just like, yeah. And I said the 7-step prayer and we moved on. Every other time that I have worked on steps 6 and 7, there have been so many more emotions, so many more uncovering of just how feebly I move through this life trying to get everything that I want. I don't feel right. I'm looking outside of myself. I want to feel better. Make me feel better. You're not doing what I want. I want it now. And that's what my 6 and 7 is like, where am I doing that? How am I doing it? And then please remove this. Please remove this. Please remove this. I think that I got like an action task that I really appreciated about 6 and 7 is that in my prayer in the morning, I could take what was in step 6 and I could take 3 of those things in my prayer and meditation and just bring those to my higher power each day. So the list didn't seem overwhelming. I could just do 3 a day and say, okay, I'm bringing these. And that way I could be aware of those, my lying, my infidelity. Like, I could be aware of those things throughout the day and ask for help with those things throughout the day. That was really useful.
Okay, you kind of already touched on this. What are some of your character defects and how are they being removed?
So I don't lie.
How are they being removed?
So yeah, I don't lie anymore. I don't do that. As a response to not lying anymore, I used to just tell the truth all the time, and that's not so great either. So my sponsor over the last few years has helped me learn how to keep my mouth shut. So there's been progressive, what do you call that? Like change. So that's in one. And now the new phrase is, what's my business, what's not? Like, is it my business, is it not? And so that's really helpful. Other character defects I've already spoken about control. Basically, I just want to feel better myself. And I'll if I am not honest in working those steps, then I will go to any means necessary to make myself feel better.
Please briefly describe steps 8 and 9.
8 was really easy because I had number 4, and then I needed to reflect, have I hurt anybody else, whether I'm resentful at them or not. The first time I did step 8, my sponsor said very kindly that my head was not connected to my heart and that we would be going back and doing the work over again. At that point, I promptly left AA for a while. That didn't work out so well. So step 8 and 9 now, I haven't made a list of the people that we have harmed in a long time because of probably something you're going to ask me in a little bit. Now I'm able to make direct amends to somebody soon after I've injured them. It's still difficult with the people in my central nucleus. I have a difficult time still saying, I am sorry. That's still a difficult phrase for me to say. I'm still learning to figure out what I'm sorry for and what's actually mine to be sorry for versus what is not mine to be sorry for.
Why is it important for you to straighten out your past?
So many reasons. The biggest part is if I don't straighten out my past, I can't help another person with the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is biggest number one. If I don't make right that part, then that will always be a shadow over my soul, spirit, whatever. And I can't help anybody if I have that. Second is I have injured people. And part of the 12 steps is being able to walk free in this planet. And I want that. I want to be able to walk free. And if I choose not to take the suggestion of step 9, I don't get that reward of walking free.
When you were actively drinking, did you drink whiskey in your milk?
No, I just drank whiskey straight. Thanks.
Please briefly describe your experience with steps 10 and 11.
I don't like this word briefly. So I used to think that a personal inventory was on a specific page in our big book. Okay? And then it was revealed to me that no, those are actually questions about step 11. So for a very long time, I was taking personal inventory at night with the questions for step 11. So the idea is not that difficult, and I was making too complicated of an issue of it. That's very much a summary of Sarah. So all I get to do is review my day. And there are some questions in our literature that help me do that from an honest perspective, because I have a sick mind and I can't do that without some guidance. That's my point of view anyway. And then there's 2 parts. I seek through prayer and through meditation in step 11. For a long time, it was just prayer. Now it is both. And I have been more open to different types of meditation. My sponsor has really helped me seek that a wider, a broader idea of meditation than I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous with. And that's what I can say about that.
What does meditation mean to you, and how do you practice it?
So meditation for me means a quietness, a stillness. And therein lies my sponsor trying to help me break out of that. She would really like me to get this idea that it could be a walking meditation. The idea is that I am trying to, without words, connect to this power, and I've clearly described this this flow of energy. And for me, I best do that sitting still, feet planted, back straight, in a relaxed position, really trying to mind, eye, heart connect with this image. I'm a very image-based person. And yeah.
Please briefly describe step 12.
I love step 12. I love that it promises me that my spirit will be alive and on fire. And I love that. And it is. In addition to that, it means that I get to do a few different things. It's a responsibility to go back to step 1, to take another person through the dark forest that is them. In addition to that, it's also answering the teleservice hotline and being available to alcoholics who don't know they're suffering. It's cleaning floors. It's opening meeting halls. It does not need to be directly carrying this specific message, but because I have an enlightened spirit, I have the ability at any point in time to make myself available to carry that message if I am putting myself in the path of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Can you share with us a spiritual experience you have had as a result of these steps?
I imagine many people choose to pass this question. Yeah, I will. I think there's 2 that I will share very, very briefly. One that's more on the spiritual side that I don't know why I'm going to say it, but I will. You know, when I was probably 6 months sober, after coming out of meditation, I got to experience this sort of vision of what my higher power was, and I haven't had a problem ever since. I have a tree that sits opposite my front porch, and it is very, very large. Its canopy is very, very large, and I had spent time in meditation just trying to connect with this flow. And when I came out, I could see all of its energy. It looked like spider web droplets just coming up from the ground through its trunk and up to its canopy. And it helped me know that I am connected. I'm a part of something larger. And I appreciate that I've been given that. In addition, I think spiritual experiences, you said spiritual experience, right? Yeah, so spiritual experience is like that's my spiritual experience. It really changed some things. In addition, there are some smaller things. There's some smaller aha moments that really, I remember sitting with my sponsor. I'm sorry, this is longer than 90 seconds, but I remember sitting with my sponsor and truly realizing that there's a person in my life who is absolutely, absolutely powerless. And it just struck me in every part, right dead center, that we are all the same. We are just all the same. We have different external features, but we are just all the same. And I am powerless just like that person is, and I have no ability to manage anybody. And that was very powerful as well.
What is the message of AA, and why is it important to carry this message?
The message of AA is that there is a solution, that we have hope here, and it's rockin'. In addition to that, I'm pretty sure that humanity is going to be on this planet for a few more generations, and therefore alcoholism is going to be on this planet for a few more generations. And so I have a responsibility to carry the message, not Sarah's message, but the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, so that the next generation or 2 generations or 3rd generations, if I'm alive long enough, that this will be waiting there for them.
What are some of the principles you're practicing in your affairs today?
Sure. So unity is, big on that one. I am not the most important person in my household. I listen to what other people have to say. I hope that their opinion is validated and at the very minimum heard. And that is the principle of unity that I practice in my household. Brotherly love, I practice on the lovely, lovely streets. I am, so those sort of things, they come into play, and I didn't, until somebody walked me through the traditions, I really didn't understand how those principles came into play, interchanging with one another. So I think that it's not necessarily a principle that we have like a tagline for, but since the root of all of my problems is selfishness and self-seeking and self, that's a pretty big tenet for me, is where am I trying to get something out of an instance, and how do I remove that? Like specifically, like when I pick up my phone to text somebody, am I trying to make myself feel better because I feel lonely? Or am I genuinely wanting to reach out to them to connect with them?
Why is it important to put the welfare of others ahead of your own?
Ooh. I don't know. It's the right thing to do. Like, I don't really have a good answer for that one. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one.
How do you determine or gauge the quality of your sobriety in AA?
Yeah, so I've had times in my sobriety where I wanted to die. And so I can remember certain parts before then. And when now, since I want to live and I want to thrive and I just want to be a part of life, I gauge my sobriety on, it's not just the internal part of what I'm feeling, because feelings can be false, but I do a set of daily actions, I do a set of weekly actions, and if I'm hitting those, then that's a good action set. If I'm doing those and I'm feeling angry, if I'm doing those and I'm feeling miserable and depressed, and then there may be something else going on, but I don't know how much better to describe that.
Why do you think alcoholics relapse?
Why do I think alcoholics drink again? We have a disease that tells us in our mind that this time will be different. This time, I think that I'm going to get it a different way. This time, if I just try a little bit harder, if I work a little bit more, if I don't go to school, if I do this, if I do that, if I do this, if, I. That's why. And it is very clear. For me, it is very clear. We do this together. We solve this together. We do not do it alone. We do it with those 12 steps. We do it hand in hand. And we do it with honesty. It's so hard, but we do it. That is my best guess. I have not drank again. I have somebody I care about very much that has, and that's the best estimate that I have.
Are you willing and able to sponsor other members currently?
Yes, both men and women. I believe that there are two male people on the board, and none of those male people are women. So I believe that if my intentions are for only that member's sobriety, that absolutely I should be able to sponsor any individual, male, female, transgender, any person with the disease of alcoholism. I have, you also asked the word available. I make myself available. And with that also comes a balance. And my sponsor helps me with not accepting too many people, not accepting too much service, so that I live a life of balance.
Presently, what is the most important activity in your recovery program?
Prayer and writing. Prayer, meditation, writing, yeah, absolutely.
Would you please generally describe the purpose of the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous?
The traditions were put in place so that this group could exist alongside another group that could exist, and that if you all could imagine like the great tendrils or the great like roots of a root system, like whether it's like in a tree and they all kind of join up at the base of the tree, it's very much what the traditions were put in place for, so that we're all connected. We can have our quirks. We have couches here, right? Not every meeting hall has couches. We can have our specifics that make these alcoholics feel like home, but the traditions were put in place so that we could come together and join together under our primary purpose and stay focused, rather than being unique alcoholics and we're going to go off and do this and we're going to go off and do that and shatter like our predecessors did.
Can you give us some examples of meeting etiquette?
Yes, I can. I come to a meeting 15 minutes early. I shake the hand of 5 people that I do not know. I stay 15 minutes late. And I'm of service to every meeting that I show up at. I do not... This was nothing that I knew, by the way, when I came to AA. This was 100%. I do not talk. I'm kind of like a squirrel. I get very distracted. So I don't talk when the readings are being read. I don't talk during the speaker. I do not get up when the speaker is speaking to use the restroom or to get more coffee. That person is probably pretty nervous. And I was told that my distracting rear end would probably make them more nervous. So I was to get there early and take care of my needs and sit my butt in the chair. And I've been practicing that for a while now, and it, at the very least, helps me stay sober.
What role models do you have in sobriety?
So my first sponsor is definitely a role model, although I'm not sure, like every once in a while, I don't know if he knows that, but I do. My current sponsor, but although she's not on a pedestal, she's just somebody who has a good program. I have other women that work excellent programs that I can rely and like I can share with them everything with. It is not, in general, it's not something that I go and I compare. I find that very disastrous when I start comparing my program to your program to your program. It goes downhill real fast. Yeah.
What advice do you have for newcomers in AA?
I wish I didn't start off every question with them. So, what advice I have? I have come to meetings and listen. I think the hardest part for me was that I fought everything. And I fought everything for such a long time. for 14 months, I fought everything. And it wasn't until I was sober for 14 months and in so much pain that I was willing to do this as designed. So I didn't start to really see the relief of the steps in my life until I was 2 years sober. That can absolutely be what you choose to do. And that's what I have to share with people is my experience. But I encourage them to work this fast and hard, not to go back to school like I did, not to get a better job or something like that. Not to focus on the external stuff, which is so easy to do. But for once in your life, like dig out the roots and stay sober so you don't have to do this again.
What advice do you have for old timers in AA?
So on page 52 of our text, our basic text is a list of questions. I mean, I guess technically it's a paragraph of questions, but there's some behaviors in there that I use as a compass for me. And I think this might have actually been one of your questions earlier, and I didn't think of it then. But I use it as a compass for me. And it is a list of behaviors, like where am I having problems with my personal relationships? Where am I? And like that's the only one that I can remember right now. But there's a whole list on page 52. And so I would ask yourself if you have been sober and through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it has been more than a year than you have worked the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would encourage you to look at page 52. Ask yourself those questions, and if you answer yes to any of those questions, consider working the steps again with the sponsor of Alcoholics Anonymous, either that you currently have, or consider finding somebody, because for me, I had to find somebody that I was willing to trust 100%, and with all of the dark crannies. And I encourage the old timers to do that.
Cool. Can you please describe what this experience was like?
This experience? Okay, not like AA in general.
This is the last question.
Oh, so like I said, it was very fast. This has been fast. I have really enjoyed looking at all the faces. It's been very helpful. I've enjoyed the questions. I wouldn't have put these questions to me in this way. You know, I that's kind of neat. I really enjoyed, and you didn't record it, but I really enjoyed your meeting format that you start off with. I really enjoyed that. And I look forward to after the meeting to like talk to the people present.
Okay. And just, if you want to, do you have anything to share with the listeners on the podcast? Any thoughts?
I guess my thought is I didn't get to share all of the things that I get to do for my recovery. I listened to a lot of speaker tapes. My thoughts in my head are nutso. And instead of listening to music, I do listen to music. I listen to speaker tapes a lot. So whether it's on a podcast or on YouTube or whatever your platform is, I listen to them a lot. And I have a son who's 12, and it's, he's tired of listening to them. And so I just didn't get to say that. I think the other thing that I want to point out is that I didn't believe that I was worthwhile and lovable when I got here. I really didn't. I felt like I was a trash can, and that I just had to put on a happy, smiley face for everybody and make sure that everybody else was okay. And I don't have to do that anymore, and I don't have to do that anymore because of these steps. And they've absolutely given me a peace from the inside of my core outward. And I hope that they do that for you too.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, for closing, from the old preamble. I wish to remind you that whatever is said at this meeting expresses our own individual opinion as of today and as of up to this moment. We do not speak for AA as a whole, and you are free to agree or disagree as you see fit. In fact, it is suggested that you pay no attention to anything which might not be reconciled with what is in the AA Big Book. If you don't have a Big Book, it is time you bought one. Read it, study it, live with it, loan it, and scatter it. And then learn from it what it means to be in AA.